Hey, Heal Squad with Maria Menounos fans. No, well, Maria Menounos. It's Mr. Maria Menounos, your backup quarterback, sitting in with Kelsey Meyer for part two of our interview. Hey, Kelsey.
Hey.
Part two of our interview with Dr. Kim DeRamo. Doing a little mind-body healing, a little alternative version of Joe Dispenza, or very similar. I know in our part one, if you're just tuning into this, check out our part one because that was very rich with a lot of great healing modalities and ways in which you can heal yourself, but also the way you can actually prevent yourself from getting sick and have a more blissful and rich life and experience. And today on this episode, we're going to talk about a lot, but including parenting. And that was really big, Kelsey. We even talk about, there was something, Kelsey, you were profoundly affected by a moment. I could see it on your face.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so we were talking about, she was sharing something about her daughter.
And you know what, Kelsey, let's do this.
Huh.
She shared a moment with her daughter, something their daughter went through in school that's very relatable to anyone Gen Z or millennial, and even like early Gen X, younger Gen X is going to relate to it. So let's run the interview, Kelsey.
Perfect.
With Dr. Kim, former ER doctor who now runs Mind Body TV. Let's play the interview, Kelsey, and then we'll wrap up. We'll talk about how you felt and how it moved you. Any quotes before we start, Kelsey, or no? Did I just catch you off guard?
No, you didn't catch me off guard. Let me see. I'm going to pull a different one because
don't stand up in a canoe.
Don't stand up in a canoe, Dr. Kim DeRamo.
Yeah, don't eat yellow snow.
Good. No, you know what? You actually did. You caught me too off. Oh, nope. Here I go. Hold on. Here's another one. Mind-body medicine is vibrational healing through increasing our frequency and reaching higher levels of consciousness. Okay.
So here's the thing, guys. That seems woo-woo and very out there and all that, but it actually really isn't. And I hope that through our interviews, we able to show that why it makes sense, why this philosophy makes sense, and why, to me, it's the only path in this this century with technology and the environment. I mean, this is the only path. And you'll either get it or you won't. I guess that's the other thing we learned yesterday is, can't really even stress out about who's going to realize or not. I just hope everyone does. Because I want everyone, I want everyone to be able to navigate this new normal, as we say.
New normal.
Normal in Boston. Okay, you guys, part two of our interview with Dr. Kim. We'll be back with a little outro once it's concluded. These big, giant truth bombs come in and they're wonderful because they make me pause and think and go further to learn more, because there's definitely something so, I don't know if the word's ethereal, but it's so out there to grasp. But I feel like this is the 21st century, and the early 1900s, it were people who were like just in the 20s. That's when usually they say, historians will say the 20s really begins a century. And I feel like you and Joe Dispenza, the work you all are doing, and we're seeing more of it with people come on our show, it's the 20s. So we're really beginning this consciousness that is not even as much of a choice as it's going to become a necessity with technology and the environment and everything going on. I think it's the only way humans are going to ascend. I think you're at the early levels of it. But that's why I'm really strong about how can we continue to clarify it, humanize it, regular guy and gal it, so to speak.
Yeah, mainstream.
Mainstream it, yeah. Kelsey, I would love to hear, did any of this speak to you?
What's funny? I think one of the things I wrote down is the suppressing of the experience, because I think that going through my life, it's hard, so much of it. And I'm only speaking for myself in this moment. I feel so much. I feel such so much at such an intense level that like for me, I couldn't feel all my experiences because it would have just like kept me from moving forward. And that's where like I think you have
need a better digestive process. You need to learn how to digest the energy so that it moves through. The more resistance we hold, that it's going to overwhelm us. The more allowance we are in, which is surrender, the energy could just move right through. Boom, 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 moves right through. It doesn't affect us or get stuck.
Ooh. Yeah. Okay. So that's what I need to work on because I think I've definitely gotten better, but especially
that's the being. Who am I being? If I'm being the small self really only knows fear, survival, fight or flight. And that's why things are so overwhelming. So it's who am I being? And always you could do a little check-in with yourself when things are overwhelming or you get triggered or a situation is not what you want. You just ask, who am I being right now? And just the asking is a shift enough because now you're in a higher observation.
Just by asking.
Just by asking, who am I being?
Dang.
Well, who am I being now, right? Go ahead, Kelsey, please.
I was just gonna say, because when you ask it, like it pulls you into that, like the present. It pulls you like into your body when you actually even ask just the question.
Yes, it brings you into observer. And observer is a higher frequency than the object.
Okay, stop, everybody. Pump brakes. And I've heard you say this before, and I've written it down. The observer. Say that again.
The observer is a higher frequency in consciousness than the object.
So think about God when we're in these situations, if we can take the time to observe, right? Rather than just make the reaction.
Yes. As soon as I go to observer, I'm allowing more fluidity. So a lot of the density just clears.
And to clarify, that's what I meant about gathering data. That's my regular guy term for it is I'm observing, which I wasn't before. I would just, I'm happy now. Wow, I feel good right now. Keep whatever. Or like, I'm down in the dumps. Screw it. I'll just push through. I'll, drink a Diet Coke. I'll, whatever. And I wasn't observing.
Yep.
And there's such a power in that. And then with, Kelsey, I think, who am I being now? And then maybe for choices and reactions, but also what was the other question about truth? Am I living truth? That's another, right?
Yeah. Am I living truth versus, the program?
Versus the program. Kelsey?
Ooh.
Am I living truth versus the program? And I think that's what I was alluding to earlier, is about we are so many of us living the program.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the difference between the human and AI is that distinction. AI is a program, and we've been programmed, but
and that's why, right? And that's why we're falling short, right? Because
we're not tapping into our true potential and our true power. If we're infinitely powerful, what the hell? Why are we creating this mess? We could be creating it totally differently, but we can't do that from the program.
Kim, a side note, why? I have theories, but you're going to have better ones. Why is the younger generation more prone to the anxieties and I don't know. I don't know. I know one young person, maybe Elaine, who used to work for us, but she's an immigrant from another country. I don't know one American friend of mine who is younger from the Gen Z or millennial who is not plagued by some form of anxiety. Why is it greater with them?
As of the 80s, some earlier, but for the most part, humans were born with additional energy centers and additional perceptive abilities.
What?
Yeah. So we have, we look like just physical, but we actually have an energy body. And the energy body has updated and upgraded and has evolved, just like physical body evolves in certain ways.
I mean, and after how many years? Are you talking like 5,000, like 200,000 years of man, right? Is it like,
after thousands of years, we've evolved through humanity, even to be, where we were 100 years ago. But there was a huge upgrade in the energy center so that we have higher perceptual abilities. We have the ability to bring in new technologies and new insights and new developments that didn't we didn't have that capacity before. Some did, there's like Tesla, who was like, I create free energy.
I know.
But the normal average human was in a certain functioning system that changed. And so for these beings with additional perceptual abilities to be in a really low frequency system, like our society that says your values dependent on, what you produce, your values dependent on what you look like, or if other people like you, or your worth is conditional, all this bullshit, right, is very, very contracting to the system. We know it's not true, and it's not.
Okay, so those three things, everyone, just so you know, what we've learned to value, those three things you just mentioned, contract the system. Okay, go ahead.
So it's a trauma. People will say, like, why am I so ridden with depression and anxiety? I had a good life. I was always fed and had a roof over my head. But they don't realize that it is a trauma in that electromagnetic system. In our sensitive little soul, we came here to be fully expressed and to have love and joy and connection and to create. And then when you land and it's like, shit, I'm on the wrong planet, there's a really, really compressive, low frequency density that we're in. And so a world that says you got to work harder, you got to be better, you got to be this, it's all conditional. That is traumatic. It's profoundly traumatic to a sensitive, empathic being, or a being with, these extra energy centers. So, 100 years ago, it's like, yeah, that's how you do it. And you're just fine. That's how we always did it. And okay, but that's not going to work for the new human. It's not how we're designed.
We also heard from someone else, anything that's too much, too soon, too fast, it creates some kind of trauma. And so, I thought that was really interesting. And
in a contracted energy system, yes. Yeah. These beings are designed for that. They're designed for massive expansion. They're designed for unbelievable inspired thinking that would blow your mind. But when they're in a contracted environment, they're not nurtured. They're not getting what they need. See me, love me, tell me I'm beautiful. Not just, oh, you're so talented. Wow, you're so smart. You made good grades. No, it's, I see you. Yeah. I see the being and the essence you are. That nurtures the system to let the system keep being the shiny being that we are. And so in this society, especially in US, which is why maybe in some other cultures it's not as extreme, they're still created with higher thinking. But in this society, it's a very, very suppressive place.
I can see, and so I could see where there's the short circuiting going on and the suicide rates, and that makes
it's excruciating. I've experienced it myself. When you're in that contraction, it's freaking excruciating. And even with all the tools that I have access to, I've had to go really, really deep to find ways to unwind that and feel good again and feel light again and be glad to be on this planet again.
Kelsey, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense. And then on top of that, we have these little computers in our hand where we're just like comparing, like, and so it's just like our brains are like, we're never good enough, and and we're never seen. And it makes so much sense. I was actually talking to a friend about this the other day, where like, I know the younger generations, it's almost like kind of get crap for it because it's like everyone's anxious, but it's like we've never lived in a time where we've had something like this and all these different platforms where like people like these kids now, these like 10-year-olds are on Instagram, they're on TikTok, they see like other 15-year-olds who are famous. It's just like, I don't know. It's so mind-blowing to me that I'm like, it's bad.
And Kim, when you talk about the outer body system being upgraded, is that why a 1 or 2-year-old is able to pick up a phone and be amazing with it? And
yes, that's part of it.
And, and we're all and like my friends who are parents are completely confused. They're like, they have no outside, they've kept it all away from them, but for whatever reason, they're able to pick up the parent's phone and start going to work on it. Is that why? So
their accelerated learning is integrated in their system, and higher perceptual awareness is part of this system. So my daughter and my son are both highly, highly intuitive. If I'm having a conversation and then we've ended it and Gemma comes in the room, she'll feel the energy of that conversation. Oh, what were you guys talking about? And she knows the feel of it. Oh, we were just talking. Yeah, but I know it was about blah, 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 blah. So, and you can't just play dumb. That's the other thing we want to talk about is how your energy affects your kids. they feel you. And so every time you say, no, I'm fine, and you're really not, it shuts down their energy system, because their energy says, I know how mom's feeling. I know what's going on.
Right.
I have this. And then you tell them, no, everything's fine. They doubt themselves. They shut down their own knowing. Oh, okay, she says it's okay, so I must be wrong. So they learn to stop trusting their system.
Okay, so I have something
No
wrong.
wonder they're in so much anxiety.
Can I run
They're
this
learning
by
not
you?
to trust themselves.
That might help a parent. So I have a friend who has a life-threatening disorder, and she opted to lie about it to her 17-year-old son because she didn't want him to be stressed or carry that pain.
It's going to be worse.
But okay,
feel the discord.
I'm a devil's advocate here. I actually think 17-year man, my dad buried his dad at that age. I was a couple of years old when I buried my father. Like, I'm like that. But I do understand from, childhood to that age where parents go, listen, I don't want to put that on them. Yeah. Like Maria does that even with her dad. I'm like, Maria, like, no, stop doing it. He, first of all, he wants to be a dad. He wants purpose. Like, don't don't. And the more she opens up to him, the more he wraps his arm and he hugs her and like, but let's take it to a child. Like you've got like this heavy stuff going on, and a parent's instinct is going to be like, I want to protect my child from this pain. Yeah. But from what you're saying, and it makes sense, you're creating greater pain, especially with these kids who are intuitive enough to know something's 100%. Up.
Okay, so for the most part, yes. And you always want to go to like, okay, in my truth, in that, infinite space, you can connect with Creator, you can know anything. What would be the most beneficial way to handle that? And it may be like, okay, don't say anything right now. Then maybe there's another time. So you can always get guidance around this. But in general, being in a shutdown or suppression or a lie, your kid's going to feel that contraction, and then they just don't know what to do with it. It'll create a lot of uncertainty, fear, and anxiety. And it doesn't mean you go to your 5-year-old and say the whole spiel, but you could say, well, there's something challenging we're dealing with that we're navigating, and we're staying open to possibilities, and you can keep it really general. But you're going to feel for like, what's the truly best way to handle this, as opposed to what the program is telling you. Oh, don't do this. Don't do this. You should do this. You shouldn't do that. You're always going to get a contrived, conclusion versus truth.
So don't honor the program and really ask yourself, hey, can my child handle this, or maybe handle more of it?
And you'll have the awareness of how to share it. You'll have the clarity, but you've got to be in that awareness, present in your body. Hey, body, how are you? You've got to be here. And you also got to be sort of, release the fight or flight breathing, release the tension, be dropped in. And then we're connecting with source consciousness. So you can just say, all right, from truth, what's the best way to approach this with my son?
And I'll bring it back to Maria's dad. I'm like, how do we know that you're not robbing him of the experience to learn from this, grow from this, or be of benefit of purpose? And this one person I'm talking about, her children are amazing. They love her. They so are team her. So maybe there's a halfway mark, like you said, if she finds what her truth is rather than what's being programmed. What's the program? I think it might help. First of all, the kids will help her. But secondly, I think one of the problems with the younger generations is the parents have so shielded them that that's not the world. And then they get out to this world and they're like, what the hell is this?
Yes, because they've shut down their sensory system. They've shut down trusting their own electromagnetic system. So then they go out in the world and they don't have the capacitance to handle it, because you've taught them to shut down. You've taught them to buy into a lie.
Suppress, whether it's through activities or, not telling them things. Busy, right? Overscheduling, right? How do you do with Gemma? Is she like one activity after another like this generation?
No, she has a lot of things she is really excited about, but we give her a lot of downtime because it's different per kid too. Like Gianni's very, let's keep him occupied. He is very engaged. And if he has a moment of sitting around, he's going to like take a clock apart and put it back together. So we resource him, like let's feed him with a lot of the learning and activity engagement. And Gemma, I mean, she's homeschooled. We do singing. She does art. She has groups so that she's involved with her friends that she loves. She does her ski group. But, she recently got out of the ski racing team because it really wasn't her nature. Like that's not the aggressive, competitive. It wasn't feeding her. But she has a lot of downtime every day. So she's in a flow and she stays really connected with herself. And
what do you do? What does she do in her downtime?
So she plays the piano.
How old is she now? 8,
she's
7, 8?
Going to be 11 in a couple
11.
months.
Oh, she's older. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So the way she ends up, like her schedule's pretty fluid. She knows I've got to do A, B, C, and D. But it's not like this happens at 2:00. This happens at 2:20. So she has her classes that are scheduled because she's doing it online with live teachers. And she does this homeschool program called outschool.com that we love. And then there'll be like an hour in between or 45 minutes in between some classes. And she can either like eat, she could, lay down, she could go for a walk, or she's going to have to practice piano sometime today. So she could put that in. But she's a little more like tuning into, when am I going to do my reading? When am I going to do my thing? And being in her own rhythm. And so that's, she's going to get her needs met. She go out and hug a tree. She's going to go out and hug a tree. She doesn't have to be at the piano at that minute. So there's a lot of flexibility, but she's a 5th grader too. So she has the capacity to say, all right, I need to get these 5 things done. Let me manage my time. So she's learning time management, but she's also learning how to tune into herself to eat or rest or take a little walk and do what is in flow.
And you just basically have padded walls up there for her, right? To, because she's not going to be able to make all her own decisions and all, right?
I'm here. Yeah. I'm overseeing her. Yeah. Her whole mix of, did you get this done? Did you do that thing? I'm not really policing her so much anymore, but she knows I care and that I'm seeing it and that I'm on with her and she's accountable. So yeah, at 5th grade, she's not completely autonomous, but I think that depends on the kid too. Like you can have a 10th grader who still needs you to be checking in versus one who's like, I care about my thing. I'm driving myself. Here we go. So I think that's the other part about parenting is if you're parenting from that inner connection, I'm connected with source. I know when to do A and when to do B. We had a talk with her weeks back and, sometimes it is a matter of like, come on, we're going to push you through this. You're not going to just couch potato it. Let's keep going. And sometimes that's poison. And this time that was not the move. And she came to us to talk about the whole thing with Ski Team. And we'd invested a lot in that. She was into it, but we realized this was not expensive for her. So my husband first started like, Gemma, we got to finish what you started and you can't just blah, blah, blah. And she was really emotional. And he started on the like, kind of like get your emotions together track, which it's not that there's not a role for that. But as we tuned in, it was like, oh, no, this is not the moment for that. And so we said, Gemma, feel what you're feeling. And she melted down 10 dimensions. She shared. So because we created space for her, she shared things she'd never shared. I don't think she was aware of, because if she's not feeling free, she won't drop into those emotions.
I love this.
And so we had a profound conversation, and she came hours later before bed and said, I need to talk to you guys about something else. And that's when, she shared something really, really dark. I didn't know. And I honestly don't think she acknowledged it to that level until she knew I'm loved unconditionally. I can share anything. It's safe for me to drop in. That she really felt, I don't want to be at that school anymore. I'm losing myself, and I don't want to lose myself. I see my friends losing themselves. Her friend will call her and give a selfie, and she's like,
with the duck lips. Kelsey, no, write that down. That's important. Kelsey can give her tips on how to do the duck. Kelsey, can you show Dr. Kim soft smile? Show Kim the soft smile peace sign. please?
Oh my gosh, I can't. I'm smiling because it breaks my heart because yeah. And
But here's the thing. But okay.
Turning into a character instead of her friend being the authentic.
Yeah.
And she's like,
but she was aware.
And now I know this friend is suffering with physical illness, mental, emotional anxiety, in therapy, on medication. She's gone down a path where she's lost herself and she's trying to find herself through being the persona. And Gemma looked at the picture and was like, I see her losing herself. I don't want to lose myself. And she saw it in her group at school that these kids would one up each other and be tough and be cruel. And she said, I feel like sometimes I start doing it too. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that person. And we said, we're done here. You don't need to go. I mean, we had the clarity that that wasn't right for her. I'm not saying you just run away and leave. It's not true. Sometimes giving them the resources to stay there is the right thing. But I felt complete and utter certainty, like, we're done.
Because you went to Source Energy, and then she was allowed to do that. Because I do know there was things in my childhood that I wanted to quit. Thank God my mother didn't let me. And then, really, even after I had great successes from not quitting, she reminded me, remember the good Catholic shaming, you remember you wanted to quit? You're so happy now with you. So there is a time, but I always say, bend, don't break. And, I had another friend tell me her son was crying at summer camp. And he said, please, I want to come home. I will do extra chores. I will do, I'll take extra classes, mommy. And she would talk to the counselors and they said, oh, this happens all the time. And trust me. And she said, no, I know my son. I'm taking my son out. And when she was telling me sometimes I can get to the program and I can be judgmental when I'm at my lower self. And in this moment, I'm like, no, I hear you. That totally was the right move. And for Gemma, and I think what you've given us as the many gifts you've given us in appearing on the show, Kim, is the fact that with their higher awareness, even, and that we have to honor that. So there's definitely
they know what they need, but it doesn't mean you let your 10-year-old drive. It means you listen from your own center so you know where to go.
So because I'm now really rethinking how I had my nephew, he's 5, and we had him this summer, and there were just a lot of times he would pout, and it was just weird to kind of go to a toy store and say, get whatever you want, and got a bunch of things, and he only used 1 or 2 of them, and always needing to be stimulated, always needing activity. But I will say he's very sensitive, though. He's really a sweet boy, and he's very sensitive. And I realize now probably need to spend more time sourcing my truth to say, because there were times where I was like, come on, buck up. But I maybe should have let him, why he was pouting, kind of maybe let him be in that, and then find out more.
There is the buck up moment where that you're going to be in your clarity. No, that's the move. But kids will feel if you're in your bullshit. I think that's why so many millennials are like, F you to the system. Why would I be in a bullshit system? You're not happy. Why would I do this when everyone's dying? And so because we haven't given them great options, then it looks like, I'm rebelling from the system.
They're in the worst position because
do nothing.
They're in the halfway mark. Do you know what I'm saying? They're in the worst. The millennials, to me, have it the worst because they're halfway. They have half of us, of that 20th century, and then the other half of wait, there's more. And I always say half measures is the disaster for anything, in life. Like if you're half a parent, a half a husband, a half a friend, a half a employee, a half a boss, it's always disaster. I feel for them, and the more I do these shows, the more I understand why.
They actually have a lot to offer, but then if that doesn't get nurtured, they're like, let me just go to Tahiti and just check out of the whole thing.
Check out or rage or or light things on fire, basically. Drugs, self-destruction. Oof. Back to the children, though, I think that it comes back to that awareness of and also knowing, you said Gianni's different from Gemma. And I think that old parenting never did that. It was like they would parent all the kids the same way. And it'd be like, that's not who that person is. That person is an artist and a free thinker. That person is like, needs to work, be physical, and I think that, younger parents and parents from other generations, it was that cookie cutter way. And the one thing I hear as I'm talking to more parents, and I'm telling Maria too, is, no two human beings are the same. So no two kids are going to be the same. So all the parenting advice is good to a degree, but it's going to come down to you having the awareness to know your individual child, and work around that. And so I spoke to a mom this weekend, and she was saying, listen, my son, and really sweet kid, very evolved. He's 18 now. She's like, he slept in our bed till he was 13, and the program told me at 3 or 4 to do all these different things, lock him in his room, let him cry it out. We tried all that. And she's like, and I'm like, I'm suffering. He's suffering. What are we doing? And she was like, screw the program. And she's like, and then one day, like at 13, one day it just happened overnight. He just went into his own bed. And she's like, but we had wonderful memories. And and she's like, so don't get sucked into the program. Now that thank you, Kim, for giving me this, like the program. And I think we all get stuck in the program and not going from truth, source energy of our truth, and then realizing who our children are, knowing they're different from us. They're different from each other. They're other siblings. And so how you're working with Gemma, you're not going to work exactly that way with Gianni. It doesn't sound like it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've got to be listening deeply to the moment. That's where you connect with source. That's where you connect with clarity. And so that's why I think that's the number one practice. If you practice that, you're always going to be guided into inspired action. You're always going to be fueled for that inspired action. So you don't have to do it from the small self.
Do you ever discipline her?
Oh God, yeah.
Him? Really?
He is it's a very different way of doing it for him versus her. And, the age is one thing, but their constitution, he tests us so much. And so if there aren't consequences, he's like, bring it on. So my parents, there was like spanking and there was all kinds, but it was actually abusive. It wasn't conscious.
No, it was out of anger. I know.
It was very reactive and really like not fitting the crime. And so I was really resistant to ever like giving him a spank. But then this kid comes along and it's like, oh my God, I know this is what needs to happen. Like he needs to feel it in his body. He needs to ground. And that's why it's the bomb. You're going to ground them into their root chakra. Like, get here now. Hear this.
So a little pat on the bum.
Oh yeah. So now, but I mean, he was like, but I know life was teaching me, because it was like, I'm just going to run across the street. I'm just going to run away. Like it was stuff that you're like, all right, I know we need to do this. So I would say, Gianni, stop. I'm going to spank you on the bum again. And he would immediately stop. And before that, there was like no leverage. He would run and he'd go across the street and he'd go here, he'd go there. He was 2 years old and he ran away twice. Like we had to call the police. So, life is going to teach you, even though you think like the programming was like, no, that's wrong. That's bad. Don't do that. It was clear. It could not have been more clear. And he was not abused. It was a very conscious act. We told him like, look, this is what we're doing.
Look, buddy.
So
he sounds hilarious. How old is he now?
He's 5.
He's 5.
He's like a 7 or 8 year old. Like he's an adult as far as having a conversation with someone. He'll have
so much is in their DNA too, right? Yeah. I think of my other nephew who's now older and he's very successful. And this kid, he wore diapers till a very long time. He just didn't want to be told what to do. He just was, no matter what, he was a handful, but from a young age, he knew, but he's very successful now. I mean, because he walked to his own beat. He did his own thing. Yeah. And I think that's really interesting. I have another friend who has the 2 kids and the third one is like that. and he's now 3. And this is the type of kid that at an Easter egg hunt, when all the kids ran out to find eggs, he just took an empty basket and he went over to all the kids who found eggs and handed his basket, said, "Come on, Pap, give me." Like they're like, "Oh my, this kid," they're like, he is just really like they say he's like a thug. He's the other ones
He's
are so
very creative.
and there's he's just really he marches to his own beat. He's very rebellious, and I always say like padded walls, because you can't totally let them go off the hook, but then I know that's who they are too. So that's where's the line with Gianni, right? You have to find that line between, you don't want to run away, right?
You gotta teach him. That's why it's been a lot of like, he's gonna have to learn behaviors. He's gonna have to learn what is and what is not gonna be appropriate. So there was a lot more disciplining, and it taught me a lot by just listening to like, what does he need, and being willing to be that. That's what being a loving parent is you're willing to really listen and do some things that maybe you thought were the wrong thing, but you realize like, oh no, there is a time for this. Like there's a time, what is it? And all things, there's a time for a time to dance, a time to weep, a time to, and even in that Bible saying, I remember thinking like, well, there's a time for, I think it was violence. Like there was a time for, that wasn't the word, but you think like, no, good and bad. This is wrong. No, there's a place for everything where it can be medicine and it can be healing. If you're not listening. Did
you consult therapists and things like that with him?
None of the people we would have found were in the consciousness that we could go to and function from. So very few people we've ever consulted for things like that. And we can talk next time about relationship, because there is an amazing person we've worked with and it's changed my life profoundly.
We need to do that.
Yeah, I'm going to finish now because I'll have to go to my interview here. But Kevin, I would just say the one thing is, where am I listening from? Like we said with Kelsey, who am I being right now? And whenever I'm being the contracted small self, my life will be a shit show.
Even as a parent, bringing it back, like closing on parenting, right?
For all of it, because your kid is going to be so immediately reactive to the energy you're in. And if you're in a contracted space of like, well, you're going to have to do this, and let me tell you that, they're going to react against that. And you're going to have more of a trouble. And when you soften and you listen and like you choose with discernment, everything changes.
Can I leave you with this back to you? We need mind, body, TV parenting. If you can come up with that. I think that would be very helpful, because I'm already thinking, how does this affect? I've seen the one kid that's the difficult one really profoundly affect the experience of the one that isn't. Like I've seen so many older siblings or younger, whoever the nice one is, really, really ails.
Well, I did an episode 2 weeks ago on Mind Body TV that was using EFT. It's a emotional freedom technique. For shifting your energy fields, getting your clarity, and specifically for your kids. And we have the Mind Body Kids program, so people can go and look toward that as well.
Kim, we're going to let you go. You've already given us enough to contemplate. Please come back and let's do relationships. Let's do how to clear negative energy. Let's do how to manifest our dreams. All the stuff we didn't get to, let's do when you come back. Dr. Kim DeRamo, Mind Body TV. You guys, love you, Kim. Thanks, honey.
Love you. Bye.
Okay, Kelsey.
Okay.
All right. So here we are back. And when she was telling us the story about her daughter and how the daughter had a friend who was at 11 is putting up the pictures with the peace signs and the duck lips, and the daughter had the wherewithal to say, she's losing herself, Mom, and this is the energy around this whatever class they were all in together or school, and I want out of it. And I think there's so much to unpack there. The fact that today's 11-year-olds know this.
No kidding.
But in parenting, allowing a child to be able to express that too is really important. But then when Kim said about the girl doing the duck lips and the peace sign, it's like she's lost herself, so she's inventing a fake self you know, in a sense to now survive and think about, right? Is that, I know that really, I could just see you just, it
Ugh,
was like Kelsey
yeah.
got punched in the stomach and you just,
Yeah.
just thinking of that, because that, right? Your generation came up in the beginning of all this and there was no awareness. Like
None.
now we're getting awareness. Thank God it's
Yeah.
beginning. And as we know from talking to Dr. Kim, it's a 3-part process. It's awareness, then it's the breathing and the kind of the exercises. After you have the awareness, then it's the choices you're going to make based on this new awareness and kind of reprogramming your body. But you guys, it was no awareness, just choices.
Totally.
So I'm either going to choose to do the selfie with the duck lips or not.
And it's like such a society, it became such a norm where it was like, if you didn't do the selfie with the duck lips, like you were the weird one, you were the odd one out, which
and
like,
by the way, listen.
and by the way,
Dr. Kim's
duh.
not here. Yeah, totally was you're the weird one.
But it's crazy. And it was funny. I was even saying to my mom this last weekend where I was like, everyone looks the same. Everyone starts to morph into one another. Everyone, it's like groupthink. It's so, and
it's the
like
program. It's the program. Like she said, it's the program.
Yeah.
You know, I was saying to Maria, I say this all the time. I miss, you know, one of the things that was nice about when we went back to Boston, Kelsey went up to the college. It was nice to just see, you know, I want to say this in a way it's not insulting anyone, so I don't mean to, but just to see, I don't want to say normal or regular or bit, but just to see people different looks and different different noses and lips and skin colors, hair. It was just nice to see that. But again, I don't judge either way. It's just that if all your happiness is predicated on that, or you think you have to fit into that program, then there's going to be that problem of and again, I love how she worded it about, you know, fitting with the program rather than your truth. You know, and I feel, and I know when
not your truth, and people lose their truth, and then they get depressed, and I don't know. It's
well, yeah, you know, well, the thing is, what I was getting at with her is, a lot of us don't know our truth. We've forgotten it. How would you know your truth if you've been doing this for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years? And if we've been programmed by society and our teachers, our parents, whatever, you know, we've been programmed in a certain way, how do you then know your truth? And I think that's what starts with the awareness and the checking in. You know, I know as a Dr. Laura Berman's always like, is this a full body yes?
Yes. Yep.
When she's about to make a choice, but she's not just asking that. She pauses and she's going into her body. Does this feel like and I think that's how you can start to figure out what your truth is. But we don't know what our truth is. Maybe because you'd say, well, my truth is I want to look awesome in my selfie. right. Because
everyone else is.
But then pause. Is that really okay? Maybe you're getting a dopamine high from some likes, but ultimately, because we hear from everybody when the cameras go off, almost everybody says how much pain and anxiety they're in, you know, that's living that kind of fake life. Right, Kelsey? How many people will say like, this is amazing, that I have the best fake life ever? It's first of all, they don't admit it's a fake life, but they will say that we just see how crazy they are, how much pain they're in.
Almost all of them. Yeah.
Almost all of them. And by the way, like, I don't know, you and I would actually have to work really hard to find one that isn't.
I agree.
And I tell you, we have one friend that has broken away from all of it and just kind of comes and goes now as she pleases, and is the closest one to living the truth. And to me, that's the one who's doing the best because of that.
Yep.
But I saw your reaction over that, and I saw how hard it hit you, and I just wanted to go to jokes because I'm like,
right.
soft smile, peace.
And I was like, we're not going to jokes on this.
Like, no, it was almost like I said, it's almost like joking about pandemic or COVID. Like, you know, it's like, but then that really made an impression on me, Kelsey, with you, because wow, that's how heavy it is for your gen, still heavy for Gen Z as well. And hopefully we'll start getting lighter because we'll start realizing this.
Yeah,
you're in the halfway mark. I think your generation is we've talked about half measures on Regular Guy Friday and how it's a recipe for unhappiness, but
right.
I think you all are right between motivation and inspiration. And so that's where the pain. And when you're in that halfway mark, it's
pain. Yeah.
You can't be happy. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's why I want you to, take some time and really process. I hope people listening will take the time to process this episode. I know I am. I have all my notes here. And we'll have to have her back because we wanted to talk about how to manifest your dreams, how to release dark
we have
energy,
so much more for her.
How to upgrade your relationships. But we'll bring her back. And but in the meantime, you can go to Mind Body TV. She's live every Wednesday on YouTube, but then she puts the episode up on Apple Podcasts if you want the audio or if you want the video. It's there on demand. Dr. Kim DeRamo, Mind Body TV. And she also has her book, which is fantastic. It's a very quick read, and it's helped me a ton. And it's funny. My interpretation of what she's doing, my Regular Guy interpretation, is actually closer to, I'm not wording it right, but it's actually closer to what she's saying to do, and it's working for me.
Just what you've been doing recently?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
I'm
great.
definitely not doing the awareness and the choices. There was never awareness before. It's just choices. Now I've brought in awareness. Now I have to do more in that second part. That second part, which is, the breathing and the techniques to slow everything down, so I can get to the truth. But it starts with the awareness, which that's
huge.
I'm seeing it help me, a lot.
Great.
So anyway, all right. Well, Kelsey, until then, Kev,
be a good person, be a nice person, make good choices, and be present.
And we thank you for your patience while we trying to hold the fort down here without Maria. And I've told Maria, I'm like, listen, honey, we just have to play 500 ball. Patriots had all those games without Tom Brady when he was suspended. They played 500. They won a Super Bowl. That's all we have to do, Kelsey. We just have to win as many as we lose. That's all. Anyway, all right, you guys, as we like to say in Boston, we'll talk to you shortly.
Bye, everyone.
Talk shortly.
This podcast and all related content published or distributed by or on behalf of Maria Menounos or MariaMenounos.com is for informational purposes only and may include information that is general in nature and that is not specific to you. Any information or opinions expressed or contained herein are not intended to serve as or replace medical advice, nor to diagnose, prescribe, or treat any disease, condition, illness, or injury, and you should consult the healthcare professional of your choice regarding all matters concerning your health, including before beginning any exercise, weight loss, or healthcare program. If you have or suspect you may have a healthcare emergency, please contact a qualified healthcare professional for treatment. Any information or opinions provided by a guest expert or host featured within website or on company's podcast are their own, not those of Maria Menounos or the company. Accordingly, Maria Menounos and the company cannot be responsible for any results or consequences or actions you may take based on information or opinions.